Do you two practice this when we're not around?
Adam Murphy didn't kill Goldstein.
But he confessed.
And I believe that he believes he did it, but he didn't.
Do tell.
It bothered me that we couldn't hit the target at the shooting range. And so I ran ballistics on the dueling pistols. The bullet that hit Daniel Goldstein didn't match either one of them. Adam couldn't have killed him.
You're talking full-on grassy knoll conspiracy theory.
Not theory, fact. There was a third shooter, and that's our killer.
How goes the haystack? Any needles?
More like a pitchfork. There's no record of Dr. Monroe ever visiting the prison, but the logs do show that another member of the hospital staff was making weekly visits to Bedford Hills prison facility.
Anyone we know?
Oh, yeah.
Nurse Greg? Seriously?
Seriously, for the past 3 years, Greg has been making weekly visits to an inmate named Amy Porter, who is doing 30 years to life for her role as a getaway driver in a failed robbery where a security guard was killed. So I did a little bit of digging, and apparently Greg was her character witness at her trial.
Amy is Greg's girlfriend. Dr. Monroe was onto prescription fraud and the smuggling ring. She thought Greg was stealing meds from the hospital and smuggling them into Amy.
For her to distribute on the inside.
So I was right. Greg was working an angle. He was friends with all these women so they would help him.
Probably without any of them realizing it, so I asked the prison warden to go and search Amy's cell, and then bring her down here for questioning.
I knew I had to tell Len before somebody else did.
Len must have been very angry when you told him.
Very angry and jealous. But I had followed them and found their secret spot. And I told him where and when to find them. I even lent him some of my equipment so he could spy on them himself.
So Len goes to the park and he sees for himself.
And then he confronts them in a jealous rage, and they kill him.
They do what now?
They kill him. The cheating girlfriend and the lover.
What are you talking about?
What
are you talking about?
They switched out real doll for a dummy doll. Magnus didn't build a triggering device for an explosion. The arm he built was for doing the pre-flight check. The whole thing's an automaton. That's the magic trick. He made it look to the world like Christian Doll was still on the plane, the same way Tobias Strange made it look like he was still in the cabinet when the swords went in.
And then he used a catering box to get the dummy on board and Christian Doll off. Then who's piloting that plane?
Christian Doll. Only not from the cockpit. He had it rigged to fly via remote control. See? Zalman puts the box in the van. There's probably a console inside there linked to the plane's avionics. Doll takes off remotely, flies out over the Atlantic.
And then he detonates the explosion, and everyone thinks that he's dead because everyone's seen him on board.
Only Doll is very much alive, and there's only one person in the world that knows it.
Zalman. And as long as he's alive, he's a threat to Doll.
So Doll has to tie up that one loose end.
But he can't risk anyone knowing that he's still alive.
So Doll has to kill Zalman himself. You remember what Raglan said back at the coffee shop about this thing going back 19 years? Turns out before your mother, there was another murder in this alley, back when it was the back entrance to a club called Sons of Palermo. It was a mafia hangout.
I didn't know this was a club.
Well, it got shut down years before your mother was killed, after an FBI agent by the name of Bob Armand was killed in the alley behind it.
It says Armin was working undercover in the mafia.
Somehow the mob got onto Armand. Used the old family remedy.
Summary execution.
The NYPD arrested a mob enforcer in Armand's murder, a guy by the name of Joe Bugatti. He later pled guilty. And guess who the arresting officer was?
Officer John Raglan.
Your mother was a civil rights attorney. Did she ever mention Armand's murder or Bugatti's conviction?
No, but there's got to be a connection somewhere. That's before he even got to the courthouse.
Which means the killer probably wasn't there either.
So then Joe's death might not have anything to do with the trial.
Well, we learned three very important things. Firstly, our killer is diabolical. You let someone unwittingly kill themselves, pure evil. Second, our killer knew Joe, or at least knew his habits. Third, our killer was a woman. Statistically speaking, poisonings are almost always carried out by the fairer sex.
But you are missing one very important detail, Castle.
Enlighten me.
Our killer had access to Joe's medications that he did not keep on him, so therefore our killer had access to
His apartment.
Bingo. Okay, so maybe Gloria was telling us the truth. Maybe Sarah was having an affair.
Well, that makes perfect sense. Sarah was separated from her husband, Vince. And after long, grueling days at work, she'd go home to a cold, empty apartment. Feeling lonely, betrayed, she seeks comfort in the arms of this mystery man.
And she decides that she wants her husband back, so she writes his mistress, Mandy Bronson, off the show in order to save their marriage.
And her next step would be to get rid of the other man.
So maybe the other man didn't go off quietly into the night.
Do you two practice this when we're not around?